So hello Forest Questers, once again we're here videoing another virtual forest school for you to enjoy and to have a go at home. This week I thought we'd have a go at processing and making something out of clay. So I have got some clay here, and one of the things you're going to have to do is try and find some clay. Not necessarily that easy, but have a dig around in your garden or have a look around in your local area. You can see clay is quite lumpy, and what we're looking for ideally is some really dry clay like I've got here. If you want, you can just go and find some mud like this from the garden. That will sort of work as a clay, but it's not quite as good as proper clay. So just have a look around and you'll soon see if it's proper clay when we start processing it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on a board and I'm going to hit it and try and squash it and down to the smallest grains that I can get. So I've got a nice wooden mallet here, which happens to be round, so I can also use it like a bit like a rolling pin to squash it all flat like that. Or you could use a stick just to roll, to break it all up like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to sieve it. And again, see if you can find an old sieve and place it on a little bucket like this. And then I'm going to tip all of this clay dust stuff through the sieve, shake it a bit and let the thinnest, the smallest, the finest stuff go through the sieve. So then we're going to tip that out. It's a bit like sand, nice and fine, and I'm going to make it with a little hole in the middle. So this bit's a bit like making dough. I've got a watering can with some water in, and I'm just going to tip a little bit of water into the middle like that. Not too much, just enough, and I'm going to start. It's also a bit like mixing concrete. So we're going to mix it in. I didn't put too much in because I don't want it to be too runny. So what we do is we just keep moulding it and working it like a bread dough, very, very similar to bread dough, and try and get all of that dust into one solid mix. Once you've got a lump, you can start rolling it in your hands. If you feel you haven't got enough water, you can add a little bit, but don't put too much in too early because we want it to be reasonably solid. You can see the effect that I'm getting here. Perfect. So it's starting to look like it's breaking up, so we're just going to work that in our hands to make sure it's as joined together as we can. Roll it in a ball, squish it, flatten it, just kind of work it, just keep rolling it around. And what will happen is all the clay dust will soak up all the water and it'll all join together. That's when you know you've got clay. If you did that with mud, it doesn't work quite as well. I'll show you that in a minute. And that's a nice ball of clay. And now we can make something out of it. And it's entirely up to you what you make. I don't know, we can make maybe we can make a little mouse or something. Maybe break off a bit of clay and we'll turn that into a couple of ears in a minute. I've got a few things here that you can use to help you mould your clay or to shape it. So I've got a coffee stirring stick, just a stick that I've got. I've got a little spatula at one end so I can shape that like that, and a little rounded off end at the other end. And a glue stick here, which you can also use. So all of these things, you can use proper clay sticks if you've got them. You get the idea. See what you can make with clay. Let's have a little go in mud, see what that looks like. Going to do just the same. We're going to flatten it out and then we're going to tip that through the sieve. Shake it in there. We're going to get fine, nice fine mud. Pour it on there. Bit of water. Doesn't soak up the water quite as well. Here's a little ball of the same material, the mud that I made earlier, and you can see it sort of works, but it does break up quite easily when you start moulding it. That's the difference, that's the problem with mud rather than clay, but you can still use it. That will dry off in about a day, so by tomorrow that will be nice and hard and you could paint it if you wanted to. Here's another one I made a little earlier. Looks a bit more like a hamster, but I've given him a couple of eyeballs, and when that dries tomorrow I'll be able to paint it and make it look a bit more interesting. So there you go, using clay to make things. Do have a go. Send us pictures of anything that you make. Thanks for watching. See you next week.
Last week we used petals and leaves to make pictures and use them instead of crayons and paints to get all the beautiful colours out of them. So this week I thought we would extend that and use petals to make some natural dye, which we will then use to colour our very own Play-Doh. This one here I made the other day using poppy petals. And I'm going to show you how to make it from scratch, because it's something you can do yourself very easily, and this Play-Doh will keep for a long time in the fridge by putting it into a polythene bag, and that will keep for quite a good few weeks. So the first thing you need to do is to get a bowl, and into that bowl, and this bit you might want a little bit of help for, is to put half a mug of boiling water. Now, it doesn't matter what size your mug is, because this is what you will use for all your measurements. So as long as you stick with the same mug all the way through, it doesn't matter at all. So half a mug of boiling water. And this time I'm going to have a go at making yellow Play-Doh. So I've been out today on my walk and collected lots of dandelions. And what I'm going to do is snip the dandelions to get all the yellow into the bowl. And this takes a little bit of time, but it's quite good fun anyway. So there you go, I've cut all the dandelions into the top of the water. Now remember, this water is very hot, so be really, really careful. And then using a spoon, I'm just going to mash it a little bit, mix it all up, so that it's all covered by the water. And then I'm just going to put that to one side and leave it for a while. And then I'm going to get another bowl to make the rest of the Play-Doh ingredients. So in here we need to put a tablespoon of cream of tartar. Now your mum might have this in her store cupboard, she might not. If she hasn't, don't worry about it, but if you've got it, it does help the Play-Doh to last a lot longer. So 1 tablespoon of cream of tartar, and then we're going to put in some salt. Now here we do need the mug again. We need 1/6 of a mug of salt. Now that sounds really complicated, but it isn't. Imagine your mug is split into 3 sections. Think about where the bottom section would be, and we want half of that in salt. So I'm going to pour that in. Again, it doesn't matter if you're not quite right. You don't have to have the exact measurements. I'm going to pour that in. And then we're going to add to that 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil, or if you'd rather, you can use baby oil. So 1 spoonful, put that in the bowl, put that to one side. Okay, now next thing I need to measure out is a whole mugful of flour. Now to me the easiest way of doing this is to use a spoon to scoop it in very carefully, and then I'm not wasting any by dropping it all over the table. But I'm not going to add it just yet. Now, we need the liquid from our dandelion mixture. I just want to make sure that we've got some colour in there. So again, I'm stirring it up. When you think it's ready, you need to strain the liquid by pouring it through a sieve into your mixture. I'm not sure this is going to work, but I'll try not to get disappointed if it doesn't. Remember, when we're in the forest, we do say if it doesn't work, we don't get sad, we don't get cross. We just think about what we did and how we can change it. And I'm just pushing it through to get all the liquid out. And then I'm going to pour in the flour, tip it in. So we've got all the ingredients in together, and then I'm going to mix it with my spoon. So when I made the poppy dough, I only used the liquid from the poppy petals because it was a beautiful red colour, and I threw the petals away. Now I've added the water from the dandelions and the colour hasn't come out quite as I expected. So this time I'm going to put the rest of the dandelions in as well to try and add to that colour, but also to add a little bit of extra texture to the Play-Doh. So now it has the liquid and the mushed up petals, and I'm going to mix those in with my fingers and try and get it all thoroughly combined. Now if you find your dough's a little bit dry at this point, you can add some extra water. What I'm finding, if you can see there, because I've added the mushed up petals, it's now got very, very sticky. So I'm going to add a little bit more flour just with my fingers and mix that in to get it to a better consistency. What we have got is a pale yellow colour and flecks from the petals included. I'll just put a little bit more flour on there just because it's sticking a little bit, and it will then be ready to mould and play. And actually I am now beginning to see that yellow coming through. Just have fun experimenting. Let me know what works for you. Perhaps if I'd left the dandelions in that hot water for a bit longer, gone off and had a little play and then come back, the colour might have been stronger, or maybe I just didn't put enough dandelions in. Perhaps if I'd put twice as many in, the colour would have been stronger too. Who knows? However, I'm quite pleased with what I've got at the end. And I think I've spotted out the front some beautiful red rose petals. I'm going to have a go at those and see if they'll work. Have fun. See you next week.